You've felt it before. The quiet frustration that arises when you find yourself in the same emotional labyrinth again. Despite swearing you've changed, different faces, different places, yet the same story unfolds. The same heartbreak in new disguises. The same argument echoing in different tones. The same opportunity slipping away, as if the universe itself is pressing repeat. You may have been told it's karma, that ancient, invisible balance sheet of the soul. But what if it's not? What if these patterns are not punishments written in the stars, but programs written in your mind? Imagine your consciousness as a vast operating system. At its core lies pure awareness, limitless, radiant, unbound, yet layered upon it are codes, beliefs, fears, memories, and learned responses, forming a complex network of invisible instructions that dictate how you perceive and respond to life. These programs run silently, automatically, like background software looping endlessly until you notice them. They whisper through habits, emotional reactions, and choices you didn't consciously make. They determine not what happens to you, but how you experience it, and most of them weren't even written by you. From the moment of your birth, your environment, culture, family, and experiences began encoding you. Every trauma carved its mark. Every praise reinforced a certain pathway. Your nervous system learned to anticipate danger, to crave safety, to associate love with pain, success with exhaustion, worth with validation. Over time, these patterns hardened into invisible architecture, a personal matrix that keeps you orbiting the same emotional constellations. It's not karma that binds you, it's unexamined code. The concept may sound mechanical, but it is profoundly spiritual. Because if karma implies destiny, programming implies potential. A program can be rewritten. Karma demands atonement, but programming invites awareness. This distinction shifts everything. You are not trapped in cosmic punishment. You are participating in a simulation shaped by your consciousness. And once you see the code, you gain the power to change it. Reality, then, becomes less like a linear story and more like an interactive hologram. Every situation mirrors the internal algorithm running beneath your awareness. A relationship that keeps ending the same way is not fate, it's feedback. The recurring frustration at work is not misfortune, it's a reflection of your self-concept looping through time. The world is not against you, it is teaching you about yourself through repetition. Like a compassionate but relentless teacher, life keeps presenting the same lesson until you rewrite the part of you that keeps summoning it. The great paradox of awakening is this: you are both the dreamer and the dream. The pattern is not outside of you, it is you, expressed in motion. And when you begin to perceive this, something subtle but radical happens. The outer world loses its power to define your inner one. You begin to sense that every repeated circumstance is not punishment but an echo, a reverberation of unintegrated energy seeking recognition. Every déjà vu moment, every emotional flashback, every "why is this happening again?" is an invitation from your deeper self to awaken from the loop. This is why ancient mystics and modern neuroscientists, though speaking different languages, point toward the same truth. Perception is projection. Your mind doesn't merely observe reality, it constructs it, filters it, scripts it. The so-called law of attraction is not some mystical lottery, it's cognitive resonance. What you hold emotionally, you repeat experientially, and until that internal frequency changes, your outer world cannot help but reflect it. But this realization is not meant to make you self-critical, it is meant to make you self-aware. You are not broken, you are patterned, and patterns, once seen, begin to unravel naturally. Awareness is the great debugger of consciousness. When you bring attention, pure, non-judgmental awareness, to the program, it begins to dissolve under observation. You start to see how your fears create self-fulfilling prophecies, how your defenses recreate old wounds, how your longing for freedom ironically reinforces the cage. The key was never hidden. It was simply buried beneath layers of forgotten code. And perhaps, this is the true meaning of liberation, not to transcend life, but to reclaim authorship over it. To stop being a passive user of an inherited system and start becoming the conscious programmer of your own reality. To realize that you don't need to break patterns, you need to understand them. Because they are showing you where you are still asleep within the dream. The moment you wake up inside the loop ends. This understanding is both terrifying and exhilarating. Terrifying, because it means there is no one to blame. Exhilarating, because it means you are infinitely free. Every repeated story becomes a doorway. Every mistake becomes a message. Every heartbreak becomes a hologram of healing waiting to be decoded. And as you read these words, you might begin to sense it, the quiet hum beneath your thoughts. The rhythm of your own programming. The small loops that shape your days. The grander ones that shape your life. And the invitation rising softly between them. To wake up. To observe. To rewrite. Because the truth is simple. You are not bound by fate. You are bound by familiarity. And once you dare to look beyond it, reality itself begins to reorganize around your awareness. To understand why you keep repeating the same patterns, you must first understand how reality itself operates, not as a static, external object, but as a living feedback loop between your consciousness and the field of existence. Reality does not happen to you, it happens through you. Every moment of your life is the projection of an inner state. An energetic pattern vibrating through the unseen architecture of thought and emotion. What you call life is a mirror, reflecting not what you want, but what you are. This mirror principle is both ancient and scientific. The sages of the Upanishads spoke of Maya, the illusory world shaped by perception. Quantum physicists now describe how the observer affects the observed, how the act of perception itself changes the outcome of an experiment. The mystic and the scientist are describing the same truth from different sides of the veil. Reality responds to the state of the observer. Your beliefs, your expectations, your emotional signatures, all of these act as the code that instructs the simulation to render your experience. Yet, the mind resists this truth because it dismantles the illusion of external control. It's easier to blame karma, fate, or bad luck than to recognize the subtle mechanics of self-perpetuation. But this resistance is itself part of the program. It protects the continuity of identity, ensuring that the familiar remains intact. The ego, that fragile construct of stories and self-concepts, depends on repetition to feel real. When you repeat your patterns, the ego feels safe, even if it's miserable. There is comfort in the known pain of a familiar loop. At the core of this programming lies emotional memory, the energetic residue of unresolved experiences. When something deeply painful or confusing happens, the mind often cannot fully process it in the moment, so it buries the charge, wraps it in narrative, and stores it in the subconscious as unfinished code. This code becomes a magnet, pulling in new situations that resonate with its frequency. You find yourself in the same argument, the same betrayal, the same disappointment, because life, like a benevolent teacher, keeps offering you the same exam until you learn the lesson behind it. This is not punishment, it's pedagogy. Reality teaches through repetition. Every recurring pattern is an echo of an unresolved vibration seeking completion. Once you fully experience what you've been avoiding, be it fear, grief, or vulnerability, the loop dissolves. The energy integrates, and the pattern no longer needs to repeat. Awareness graduates you from that level of the simulation. But awareness alone is not enough, it must be embodied. This is where most seekers stumble. They awaken intellectually, understanding their patterns conceptually, but they do not feel them fully. They analyze without integrating, diagnose without digesting. True reprogramming occurs when the nervous system feels safe enough to release the old loop. That means you must meet the emotional charge not with avoidance, but with presence. The program dissolves when you stop reacting and start witnessing. The core themes of this realization revolve around autonomy, awareness, and alignment. Autonomy is the reclaiming of your creative power, the recognition that you are not a victim of external cycles but the source code from which they arise. Awareness is the flashlight that illuminates the unconscious, and alignment is the rewiring process, the gradual shifting of your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to reflect the truth rather than the program. Many spiritual traditions misinterpreted this process through the lens of moral cause and effect. Karma became a cosmic scoreboard, a system of reward and punishment. But in truth, karma is simply pattern repetition through resonance. What you vibrate, you attract, not as justice, but as echo. When you transcend the frequency that created a pattern, the pattern no longer has substance. The so-called debt dissolves not through suffering but through awakening. Your programs are not malicious, they are protective. Every loop you find yourself in once served as a survival mechanism. The person who repeats abandonment scenarios may have encoded the belief that closeness equals danger. The one who sabotages success may have associated achievement with rejection or exposure. Each self-destructive behavior is an outdated safety strategy, an emotional firewall designed to keep you safe in an earlier version of your life. Understanding this breeds compassion rather than shame. You're not broken, you're just running old software on a new system. And yet, just as technology evolves, so too does consciousness. The next step of evolution is conscious coding, the deliberate rewriting of your internal architecture. This is what mystics mean by awakening or liberation. It's not about escaping the human experience but learning to operate it consciously. When you recognize that every emotional reaction is a line of code, every relationship a mirror, every coincidence a message, you begin to engage life differently. You stop fighting the simulation and start learning from it. The moment you realize that nothing external is truly against you, the loops lose their hold. You begin to see how your anger, jealousy, or fear were not random. They were entry points into deeper awareness. Each pattern that repeats is an opportunity to bring the unconscious into light. And the more you do this, the less the past dictates your future. You begin to live not as a programmed human reacting to reality, but as consciousness itself, rewriting the script in real time. And that, perhaps, is the ultimate shift, from being the character to realizing you are the author. The program becomes a playground. The loop becomes a lesson. The repetition becomes revelation. You were told your body is made of atoms, molecules, flesh, and bone. But look closer. Beneath the surface of the skin, beneath the pulse and breath, there lies something far more mysterious. Every cell in your body hums with the vibration of light. Every atom is 99.9999999% empty space. The solidness you feel is an illusion, a perception created by the dance of electromagnetic fields. So what are you, really? Flesh, or light pretending to be matter? Modern physics and ancient mysticism unexpectedly converge here. Quantum theory tells us that matter does not exist as static substance, it flickers in and out of being. The Upanishads, thousands of years before quantum mechanics, describe the body as Maya, a shimmering illusion woven from the energy of consciousness. Between science and spirituality, a whisper emerges. You are not inside your body is inside your consciousness. Imagine your body not as a container, but as an interface. A temple built not of stone or skin, but of frequency, a sacred device that translates vibration into sensation. When light condenses, it becomes matter. When consciousness focuses, it becomes the world. Your body is the lens through which the infinite experiences form, a sacred mirror that allows the formless to feel, to see, to touch itself. That is why mystics across cultures call the human form the bridge. It stands between heaven and earth, between the unmanifest and the manifest. Your bones are crystallized starlight. Your blood is ancient ocean. Your breath is the echo of the first cosmic wind that once rippled through the void. In your DNA is the entire history of the universe, the memory of fire, the longing of creation to know itself. And yet, we spend our lives identifying with the reflection rather than the source. We polish the mirror, but forget the light that shines through it. We become obsessed with form, with appearance, age, perfection, and overlook the sacred geometry of the energy flowing within. The body is not a prison for the soul, it is a sacred classroom. It teaches through sensation, through pain, through pleasure, through heartbeat and hunger. It reminds consciousness of what it means to be. Close your eyes for a moment and listen, not to your thoughts, but to the silence between them. That silence is the same substance your body is made of. Between each heartbeat, there's infinity. Between each breath, the cosmos expands and contracts. Just as your lungs do. You are a microcosm of the macrocosm, a living fractal of the universe's eternal pulse. But here lies the paradox. The more you seek to transcend the body, the more you misunderstand it. The path to higher consciousness doesn't abandon the physical, it sanctifies it. Enlightenment is not escaping the body, it's seeing it as divine. When a mystic says, "I am not the body," they do not mean the body is unreal, they mean it's not separate. The body is the gateway, not the obstacle. You were never meant to conquer your flesh, you were meant to awaken within it. The cells of your body are not merely biological, they are aware. They respond to your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs. Every time you love, every time you forgive, every time you breathe consciously, you alter the electromagnetic pattern of your being. You are literally sculpting the temple from within. What if disease is not punishment, but communication? What if every ache and illness is your temple whispering, something sacred is out of alignment? What if every pulse, every surge of energy in your spine, every shiver of intuition is your body trying to help you remember that you are light learning to walk as matter? And in that realization, something extraordinary happens. The body ceases to be an object, it becomes a symphony. Each heartbeat becomes a drum of creation. Each breath becomes an offering. You begin to move through the world with reverence, not because you are fragile, but because you are infinite pretending to be human. Your body, in truth, is not what you think. It is a sacred paradox, the infinite disguised as flesh, the timeless wrapped in time. And when you begin to see it that way, every cell becomes a prayer. You have been taught to fear death, to see it as the great eraser, the end of all things. But what if death is not the opposite of life? What if it is its echo? The body ends, yes, the skin fades, the bones return to dust, the breath dissolves into the wind. Yet in that very dissolution, something vast awakens. When the temple collapses, the light it once contained is set free. From the perspective of consciousness, death is not destruction, it is transformation. It is the unbinding of light from matter. The ancient Egyptians knew this well. They saw death not as an ending but as a crossing, a sacred initiation through which the soul remembers what it truly is. They called the body the Ka, the vessel of life force, and death was simply the moment, the Ba. The essence of consciousness takes flight back toward the source. Modern science, in its own language, is beginning to whisper the same story. When you die, your body returns its borrowed atoms to the cosmos, but energy, as physics teaches, cannot be destroyed. It changes form. Your consciousness, the awareness that has watched your entire life unfold, is not made of matter. It is not a product of the brain, rather, the brain is a receiver, a translator. When the receiver breaks, the signal continues. Imagine this. Your consciousness is like light shining through a stained glass window. The body is that glass, each color, each shape, each imperfection giving form to the light's passage. When the glass shatters, the light does not end. It simply shines without limitation. And so, perhaps death is not the loss of who you are, but the unveiling of who you've always been. There are moments in deep meditation, or in dreams, or near-death experiences, when people describe the same thing, a brilliant awareness beyond form, beyond identity. They speak of floating in infinite light, of feeling not as an individual but as everything. There, time vanishes. There, the self dissolves into something vaster, calmer, unnameable. That is the reality your body has always been preparing you for. Because your body, fragile, temporal, finite, is the training ground for eternity. Every heartbeat teaches you impermanence. Every breath rehearses surrender. Every night, when you fall asleep, you die a little. You let go of your identity, your story, your sense of control, and every morning you resurrect into the dream again. The mystics call this cycle the dance of Shiva, the endless creation and dissolution of worlds. Your cells live and die by the billions each day. Yet you remain. Your personality shifts. Your thoughts evolve. Your memories fade. And still, there is something untouched, something watching all of it happen. That something is the eternal witness, the consciousness behind your eyes. To understand death is to understand that you were never the form. The form changes, consciousness does not. The same awareness that looked out through your eyes as a child still looks out now. You have changed completely, physically, emotionally, mentally, and yet, the I am behind it all has not aged a day. Death, then, is not a thief, it is a teacher. It strips away what is not real so that what is eternal may be revealed. It invites you to stop clinging to identity, to story, to fear, and remember that the temple of flesh was never meant to last forever. It was meant to be experienced, honored, and released. The body is the sacred book of impermanence, and every chapter, birth, growth, decay, is written in divine ink. And when the final page turns, the reader does not die. The reader closes the book, and in that silence after the last word, realizes they were the author all along. This is why, across traditions, death has always been accompanied by light. The Buddhists call it clear light awareness. The Tibetans describe the bardo, the luminous space between lives. Christian mystics speak of the soul ascending through radiant corridors. Scientists studying near-death experiences record the same phenomenon, people entering a field of indescribable brilliance and unconditional love. What if that light isn't something you go into, but something that has always been inside you? What if, at the moment of death, the illusion of separation collapses, and you realize that what you called the world was simply your own consciousness exploring itself through form? Death, in that sense, is not an ending but a return, the wave merging back with the ocean, the dreamer awakening from the dream. And the great irony is this: the more deeply you understand death, the more fully you live. When you no longer cling to form, every breath becomes sacred, every moment glows with impermanence. You stop running from time and begin dancing with it. You begin to see that nothing was ever lost, only transformed. There comes a point, somewhere beyond philosophy, beyond science, beyond ritual, where the mind falls silent and the soul begins to remember. It's a remembrance not of new knowledge, but of something ancient and intimate, like the feeling of a song you once knew by heart but had forgotten how to hum. It's the remembrance that you were never just human. You were, and are, the vastness itself, condensed into a body, translated into flesh, shaped into breath so that consciousness could experience itself in motion. When you begin to see your body as the temple for something far greater, the walls of separation start to dissolve. You look at your hands, the same hands that build, touch, comfort, and destroy, and realize they are extensions of starlight. You walk barefoot on the earth and feel the pulse of the planet echoing through your bones. You inhale, and the air that fills your lungs once passed through the leaves of an ancient forest. Once danced in the lungs of ancestors. Once shimmered on the surface of a star. The illusion of you as a separate entity starts to soften. You begin to live in a quieter knowing. I am this. And this is me. This is the great remembering, that you are not a visitor in the universe, but the universe itself, exploring consciousness through the experience of individuality. Your body, then, is not merely a vessel, it is a bridge. It connects matter and spirit, form and formlessness, time and eternity. Through it, the infinite gets to taste itself in finite moments. Through it, God gets to know what it feels like to be human. But with remembering comes responsibility, not as moral burden, but as sacred opportunity. Once you know that every heartbeat is the rhythm of the cosmos, how could you move through the world carelessly? Once you realize that the atoms of your skin are the same atoms that shimmer in distant galaxies, how could you treat another being as less than? To harm another is to desecrate your own temple. To heal another is to restore your own reflection. This is the essence of awakening, not escaping the human experience, but sanctifying it. To eat, to breathe, to weep, to love, these become acts of prayer. The mundane becomes mystical. The body, once seen as limitation, becomes revelation. The divine no longer resides in some distant heaven, it reveals itself in every sensation, every pulse, every inhale that bridges worlds unseen. Yet awakening does not mean perfection. It means awareness. It means you begin to see your patterns, your fears, attachments, and reactions as programs, not punishments. The mind has been conditioned, yes, but you are not the code. You are the awareness that can rewrite it. Each time you choose compassion over control, presence over reaction, truth over convenience, you are deprogramming the illusion. You are reclaiming authorship of the dream. And this is what liberation truly is. Not an escape from the body, but the full inhabiting of it. Not rejection of the world, but intimate participation with it, in conscious wonder. Death no longer terrifies you, for you understand it as transformation. Pain no longer enslaves you, for you see it as message. Life no longer feels random, for you perceive its symmetry, the way every loss makes space for deeper fullness. Every ending opens the door to rebirth. At the core of all spiritual truths lies one luminous principle: there is no outside, no other, no separation. The temple and the cosmos are one continuous body. What you think shapes what you see. What you feel ripples through the unseen. The tiniest shift in consciousness within you echoes across the universe. This is not poetry, it is physics of the soul. When you breathe in awareness, you breathe life back into creation. When you stand still in the midst of chaos and remember, I am the witness, not the storm, the very vibration of reality rearranges itself around your calm. The outer mirrors the inner because they were never apart. So what does it mean, truly, to know that your body is not what you think? It means you walk differently. You touch the world with reverence. You no longer pray upward, but inward, because divinity was never elsewhere. You see your scars as scriptures. You see your heartbeat as mantra. You live as if every gesture, every breath, every silence is holy, because it is. And what is it that you are a temple for? For consciousness itself, for love, awareness, creation. You are where the infinite comes to feel finite, where the eternal pauses to experience time, where the divine learns humility through flesh. Every time you awaken, even slightly, to this truth, every time you remember that you are not the story but the storyteller, not the mask but the light behind it, the universe expands a little more through you. It celebrates your remembering. In the end, all paths, scientific, spiritual, mystical, Converge on this one realization. You were never a fragment seeking completion. You were the whole, pretending to forget. And now, as you remember, the game changes, the fear softens, the patterns lose their grip, the illusion unravels. You begin to live not from survival, but from essence, not from programming, but from presence. You return home to yourself. And the temple, at last, begins to sing again.